Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Esoteric Agenda. I'm Roger Hanson, your host, and here with me today is my co-host, which I should be calling him co-host by this time, Mark Edworthy. He's been on every show that I've had going for quite a long time.
Yeah,
And,
quite a long time.
and, and also, we have Tanhai Tran with us tonight. He is going to be listening in, and if he hears something interesting, he's going to say something. Glad to have you with us, Tan.
Hey, everybody.
Okay, so last time we were doing Esoteric Agenda, we were talking about Al-Kindi. Now, I was going to move from, it was actually Neoplatonism. I was finishing up on Al-Kindi and Neoplatonism and how it all intertwined. And after that, I was going to go into the Emerald Tablets of Hermes, the Emerald Tablets. But I ended up getting caught up in a conversation which I found to be pretty interesting, um, which concerned Ruth in the Bible. Now, Ruth is very important, and a lot of people don't know that because the book in the Bible is really short on Ruth. But the thing about Ruth is she ended up marrying a man by the name of Boaz. And Boaz is the name of one of the pillars on the first temple in Jerusalem. And it's also used quite a bit for Freemasonry. So that kind of uh, brought me into the idea that maybe it'd be a good idea to discuss the topic of um, Boaz and the Pillars of Solomon first. So, with that being said, what do you guys think? You think it'd be a good idea to discuss it?
Well, it's a subject I am fairly ignorant about, so yeah, carry on now. You're going to probably teach me something.
Okay. How about you, Dan? You able to say something?
Not really. I'm new to the format of this particular stream, so I'm not sure what you're up
You
to. But yeah,
this
there's Ruth and Boaz. It's interesting, but it depends on what you want to talk around
well,
around them and your esoteric agenda. So how
well,
do they how do they relate?
when it comes to what people say on here, I'm pretty open to the whole idea when it comes to the topic. So it doesn't really have to be like your take in an esoteric way or anything like that. Just like your knowledge of Boaz, your knowledge of Ruth. If you want to do it in religious
Mm,
terms, is perfectly fine. You know what I mean?
mm,
That's, I mean, last year I did Esoteric Agenda solo. So, I mean, I didn't have other people's take on it. This year I'm doing it live stream with other people. So, I mean, that's the reason why I'm doing it. You know what I mean?
okay,
So
okay.
don't let the name or the reasoning behind all of this persuade you not to talk about it, is all I'm saying.
Okay.
So, what's
Uh,
your,
I
what's your,
think
what's your take on
I think
all?
I mean, do you have a do you have I think you should start talking about what you want to say about Ruth and Boaz, and then we can chime in.
Well,
I don't
Boaz.
know. You should lead the conversation.
Okay. So the name Boaz by itself, it's really a fascinating place in not only biblical history but symbolism, and then later like fraternal traditions like the Freemasons. Now in the Bible, Boaz first appeared as a person. He was a landowner in Bethlehem during the period of the Judges. Okay, so his story is usually told in the Book of Ruth. And this is where he emerges as a figure of integrity. He has generosity and he has something that a lot of people don't know of, even like people who are into Christianity. It's called covenant faith. That's a big deal, and that's something that really stuck out to me in a lot of readings. You'll hear the term covenant faithfulness, which is um, pretty interesting. And it is almost actually esoteric in its own right, but it's not. It's anybody who wants to know what that means can actually literally look it up and find out what it means. You know what I mean? So, have you ever heard the term before, Tan?
Yeah, I mean, the Jews were referred to as the people of the covenant, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, the covenant is uh, that contract kind of slash deal that Abraham made with God, about serving Him, and then them serving Him, and He will be their God, and they will be His people, and they will, if they follow Him faithfully, He will keep them. He will take care of them, keep them from harm against their enemies. Uh, but ever since that and throughout history, we've known that the people of the covenant keeps breaking the covenant repeatedly, and God had to keep making concessions for them, right? And that's the whole thing about the people of God up and down the ages, starting all the way from the beginning with Adam, right? And God told him not to eat from the tree. He ate from the tree. So, um, so God had to, um, um, if Adam and Eve had stayed with the original um plan, and then they would, never had to suffer death and pain and all that. But so that's the first covenant they broke, and then from then on is repeatedly one covenant after another. Um, we fall short of the promise we make to God. So, but that's not to say that God had to work around our breaking of His plan. Right? I mean, God is God. He wouldn't be God otherwise, if He hadn't foreseen all the eventualities that mankind would do to His plan. So, yeah, let's go back to your point. Continue, Roger.
Oh, that's fine. You did a really good thing of explaining that. So I appreciate that. And centuries later, uh, the name Boaz appeared again in a very different context, basically. Uh, this is where it's adopted. The name was adopted uh, on the names of the pillars of or actually there are two bronze pillars that stood at the entrance of Solomon's temple in Jerusalem. Um, and That was the first temple. Now, many centuries after that, the Freemasons adopted the name of these two pillars, and they're supposed to be the central symbolic elements within its ritual structure. I mean, that's something that a lot of people don't talk about either when it comes to the Freemasons. Like they were very ritualistic. Now they actually center a lot of their traditions and everything around these two pillars. As a matter of fact, the pillars were the original tenets when it comes to Freemasonry before everybody started talking about Hiram Abiff and stuff like that, which that's old. That is old tradition. But before that, they were more focused around the pillars of Solomon's temple. You heard old stories of Moses's staff. That was another thing. There was an old lore that I remember where they said that the wood that created Solomon's staff was actually from the tree of life, and from the
Hmm.
tree, and then from the tree of life, it became part of the wood that was on Noah's Ark for whenever the flood happened, and then it went from there to the staff that Aaron, wasn't it? No, it was Moses that had the staff, wasn't it?
It was Moses' staff.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So there was that tradition, that was that folklore that came with the Freemasons and stuff that happened out of that. And now, even though these these threads basically originate uh, in different historical moments, they converge around themes of like strength, stability, covenant, and sacred architecture. So that's that's something that I've actually seen right there, where they when people are into Freemasonry, they really do believe in the architecture part of the whole thing, like the whole thing about Hiram Abiff. Now there, when I did research on that, I also found out that there's different Hiram Abiffs mentioned in the Bible, like the one that they're discussing. It doesn't really match up all that well with the biblical terms because there's like two or three different Hirams that are in the Bible, and like what happened was is they kind of blended them together to make one character. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Now no, in the biblical narrative, Boab was introduced as a wealthy and respected man. He was from the clan Elimelech. Now, what happened was is when Ruth, who was a Moabite widow, uh, she ended up returning to Bethlehem with her mother-in-law Naomi, and she ends up finding herself in a real vulnerable position. Now Boaz noticed Ruth uh, gleaning in his fields, and he treats her with unexpected kindness. Um, After that, he ensured her safety, and he also provided her with grain, and then it ultimately fulfills the role of kinship uh, redeemer by marrying her and restoring Naomi's family line. Now, this family line, the thing that's so amazing about this is like Naomi is a part of the original family line that they're referring to, which is actually the line of David. And the line of David is the line that is supposed to make Jesus the Messiah. Okay, because the Messiah is supposed to come from the family of David. Now, the thing that really stuck out to me about this is yeah, Boaz is an actual Jewish person. Um, Ruth, Ellen, Naomi is too, but Ruth was a Moabite who adopted the Jewish tradition. Now, I believe Boaz married her, and he was the older brother of her first husband. Is that the case? You're the religious expert here, Tan. Is that the case?
Boaz?
Yeah, wasn't was he was like?
No, he was a relative.
Does it say specifically that he was like the older or younger brother?
No, he's not a brother. He's just a relative. Let me just see. Let me just look it up here.
We'll
Could be
check out see what
like an
cousin.
uncle or some sort. Let me just double check.
So basically, Boaz becomes the great grandfather of King David. Okay, now the story emphasizes loyalty, redemption, and the integration of an outsider into Israel's covenant community. Okay. Um, Now, the name Boaz itself is commonly understood to mean something like "in him is strength." So the word itself represents strength, and that's a meaning that really sticks out when it comes to the character's role in Ruth's life, and with its later symbolic use. So I do find that interesting, and I find it interesting too that when I look through a lot of names in a lot of different areas of the world throughout history, that names are actually given to people that coincide with the actions they are supposed to take. So that's something that really stuck out to me when I started checking into this stuff. I'm wondering if maybe people were renamed according to their deeds. You know what I mean? Because it
Uh,
does happen quite a bit.
Again, in European history and European cultures, people are named after trades, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Hence the Smiths, and be the most obvious one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, it's like when we go on Nancy's show, Arpad, Vicky's husband. Okay,
Mm.
now he's named after Arpad, a European king or an emperor or something like that back in the day. And the thing about that is I did research on that, and that had to do with like barley, you know. So I can understand where that is like a natural name, but then you get like different names of people who were great people in history that ended up having names that coincide with the deeds they were supposed to do. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So that's one thing that really did stick out to me, and it still sticks out to me. I see it actually quite a bit in a lot of the old writings. So I'm still in the process of trying to do some research on that because I'm pretty sure that it's actually pretty valid case to make on it. Did you find anything yet, Tan?
Yeah. So it only. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It only says that Boaz was a kinsman of Naomi's husband,
Okay, so he's just a
right?
kinsman.
So he's a relative on Naomi's side, and Naomi is Ruth's mother-in-law, right?
Right.
So
But
it's a distant relative.
yeah, I did find that pretty interesting that that she was allowed into it. Now the Moabites. How much do you know about the Moabites?
Not off the top of my head, not much.
Oh, my goodness. I thought
They
oh,
were they one of the people who were warring with the people of Judah?
I believe at the time
I
when they were doing the Exodus, they
could
were.
be wrong.
Now, whenever the Jews were coming out of Egypt, I know that like God was supposed to warn them, you don't take this land, you stay away from this land, you can travel this way, that way. And I know that the Moabites were mentioned quite a few,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? So I do know that much. I don't know for sure if they were warring with them or not. So,
When I get back to my computer, I'll be able to do more research on the fly.
yeah, I hear you.
Keep going.
Okay, so like I said, the name Boaz itself is commonly understood to mean something like in his, in him is strength. Okay. Now that is characterized basically in later symbolic uses, which leads you to the pillars, and then it also leads you to Freemasonry. Now, the second biblical appearance of the name occurred in the account of Solomon's temple. Now, according to the first book of Kings, two massive bronze pillars were cast and placed at the entrance of the temple. And one of them was named Jachin, and the other one was named Boaz. Now, these pillars were not structural supports. Um, in the modern architectural sense. Instead, they stood as monumental markers. You know what I mean? And you'll find that like in Washington too, in a lot of the old. Oh, are you still there, Mark?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, so just, yeah.
It looks like.
Same as, oh, much more in the US, but not uncommon in Britain.
What do you mean? Like you got a
I
lot of. Go ahead.
mean, yeah, as in pillars, as I mean, sort of, I don't know, what
Uh,
would be more
I,
commonly known as Roman architecture.
Right. Right.
I got disconnected.
Yeah, I know. We kind of freaked us out. We thought maybe you got mad at us and said, I'm sick of hearing this religious stuff.
No, I'm sick of hearing Roger Hansing bashing God and biblical characters. I was
That's horrible.
go on, go on. I want hopefully at some point you get to the place where you associate Freemasonry to to Moab. Yeah,
Okay, so,
that's a far-reaching conclusion that you need to jump.
well, the Moabs, well, first of all, Ruth was not a Jew. Okay. She was
Correct.
an
Yes.
outsider that was accepted in to the Jewish faith. That's actually a pretty big thing to bring up, especially in today's climate. Like a lot of people like to say that they're very secluded and they just don't allow you into their little clique, and that's not the case. Biblically, there's Ruth, and then there's freaking Esther. Esther was actually a part of the Jewish. She was Jewish, but then she ended up becoming a folklore and a legend in the freaking Persian empire. She ended up becoming freaking a Persian freaking queen, and she was Jewish. You know, most people don't know about
Yep, yep,
that.
yep. That's right. That's right. Yep, yep, yep.
So that's very valid in the first place. But
That's
the okay, go ahead.
uh, 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 that's not uh, unheard of because you remember Joseph uh, was not Joseph, Mary's husband, but Joseph from uh, the 12 sons of Israel, of Jacob.
Yeah.
Uh, he was the second in command of Egypt, right? So,
Mhm. Well, see, even Jacob's ladder. Now that's something that it's interesting too, especially when it comes to the esoterics, because Jacob's ladder is another thing. We're talking about the pillars right now, but like when you start getting into like Jacob's ladder, you start talking about what Osiris. Okay, you'll hear the real popular stories of Osiris and how he died, but a lot of people don't hear about the ending. Okay, the ending before he became judge of and jury in the underworld, he also climbed freaking a rope up into the heavens and hid. I believe the sky was called Nut. I believe it's been a while since I checked it out. That was his mother.
Yeah.
What
So,
was it again? What'd you say, Mark?
yeah, I'm just thinking, yeah, or not, then, yeah, sounds
But
correct.
so you had that correlation going on there too. You know what I mean? Um, that's actually a good thing. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that really stuck out to me when I actually started checking out Jacob's ladder. Have you remember hearing the story about when he slept with his head on the rock and he had a dream?
yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
s- well, yeah, again, this sort of theology is not since I was a kid, so just sort of only getting glimpses of things I can remember, but yeah, carry on.
But yeah, I mean, it's these are like little golden nuggets. You know what I'm saying? And
Mm.
you'll find out about Jacob's ladder when it comes to the esoterics. You'll also find out about the pillars of the first temple of Jerusalem. That's a big part. And Ruth, okay, the fact that she was an outsider and she came in and she was actually a part of the direct lineage of David is a big deal too, because the Messiah for the Jews was actually mothered by an outsider. Okay. And you see that theme in a lot of the old Jewish beliefs. Like everybody talks about Abraham. Okay, Abraham was an outsider. You know what I mean? He came from a foreign land. He wasn't native to Israel. And a lot of people don't catch that. So there's a
But Abraham is part of the lineage.
well, he's the beginning, isn't he?
No, Adam is the beginning.
Well, I mean, according to the Jewish tradition, like Israel wouldn't have even been named Israel if it wasn't for Abraham, right?
That's right.
You see, like he was actually named Israel by God Himself, right?
Yeah, he was Jacob before he was named Israel.
Yeah, right. So it all is kind of interesting how all of that works out. Um,
Mm.
and it's the whole thing of the outsider, you know what I mean, which kind of sticks to me. You'll see that commonly happening all throughout the Old Testament. um, So that's something that really stuck out to me. Um, and another thing that I did want to bring up, which through my research, that there's a big well, there was questions that was mentioned before about Jesus, you know what I mean, and the reason why the Jews didn't accept Jesus as being the Messiah. And what I found out was that the only one of the biggest arguments that they had with Jesus not being the Messiah was because of the actual bloodline, the lineage. Now, according to Christianity, Mary was a virgin, and she gave birth to a child without having sex. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I found out was that the Jewish they don't believe that that's actually an authentic lineage to the family of David, considering that she didn't have consensual sex with Joseph.
But both Joseph and Mary are from the lineage of David.
Now, I've also checked on that too, and I haven't found anything that verifies that Mary was
No,
actually.
it's straight out of the Bible. I can't remember from New Testament which book it was, but there are two versions. First chapter and second chapter uh, state the lineage of Jesus, starting with a whole bunch of begat. Remember,
Mm-hmm.
uh, Adam begat uh, uh, this and this begat, and it went all the way down to Abraham. And then from Abraham, go down to Jesus, 14 generations apart. And then the chapter 2 gave a slightly different lineage. It's also from Adam all the way down, but it diverged at some point in the path, but it still ends up with Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And so the church explanation is that the first one of the lineage is from Joseph's line, and the other is from Mary's line. So people have been using that to claim that the Bible is full of contradiction, and that's one example of it. But that's what it is. So the two lineages are both true. It's just one is from Joseph and the other one's from Mary. So they are both from the lineage of David.
See, this is one reason why I think sitting down and doing a serious discussion about Ruth would be a good thing for me and you to do, because like me and you did freaking what was it, the Amorites? I keep mixing them up. It was either the Amorites or the Elamites, one of the two.
We talked about the Amorites,
Yeah. And then we did the dead prophets,
the dead
or no,
popes.
the Dead Pope Society. That's the name I gave it. But I seriously think
Yep.
sitting down and doing a show on Ruth, and then maybe throw Esther in too, because that, believe it or not, that is something that a lot of people need to freaking learn about. A lot of scholars have debated over it, because Esther not only has Jewish heritage in the Bible and stuff, but like there are tons of Persian freaking folklore about her. Like she's, yeah, she's,
Then I will be learning something new then.
yeah, she's very,
But
very,
yeah,
very, very interesting. It's
be
not,
interesting to know
yeah, not
about
just,
the folklore stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Anyway, back to okay. So I don't know if you are ever going to end tonight's stream with the full of what you want to talk about. So you're starting to talking about the pillars
right.
and the the Freemasons. We need to connect them together.
Well, basically, I am connecting them. It's just you're not connecting them. You know what I
I'm going to
mean?
have to elaborate a little bit, I think.
So from Ruth ends up marrying Boaz. Boaz is very, very symbolic to the Jewish people. They build the first temple in Jerusalem, and they create two pillars. One of them was named Boaz, and then the other one was named Jachin. Okay. Now these pillars, they weren't structural supports. Okay. Instead, they were monumental markers, uh, and they were placed at the threshold of this temple, which is a sacred space. Now,
Which temple are you talking about?
the first temple,
Okay, the one built by Solomon.
right, Solomon's temple. Now, their placement
Okay.
at the entrance that suggests that they function symbolically, framing the transition from the ordinary world into the realm of the divine worship. Okay. Now, the text also describes them as tall and ornate. They were supposed to be crowned with capitals, decorated with pomegranates and lily work. So the names assigned to them also, if you look at it, they also carry theological weight as well. So you have Jachin, and I could be saying his name wrong, but Jachin is often interpreted as meaning he establishes, okay, while Boaz is associated with strength. So together they
Just,
express.
just
Go
sorry,
ahead.
just off a tangent, a slight tangent. Am I correct in saying pomegranates have a not? There's a big symbolic thing with masonry.
Mm-hmm.
Pomegranates.
Yep.
Yeah.
So while Jachin is supposed to mean he establishes, Boaz is associated with strength. Okay. So together they express the idea that the stability of the temple and the kingdom rests uh, not on human power alone, but on divine establishment, and it's supposed to be also like enduring strength and stuff of that nature. At least that's what I've found out so far. Now, when Freemasonry emerged, uh, it, it it was a very speculative form, which a lot of people who, if they've read it, knows what I'm talking about. It's very, very speculative, and you like using that word a lot, Mark, so you know exactly what I mean. Now, this was during what we consider the modern period, okay, and it drew heavily on the imagery of Solomon's temple. All right. Now, the temple for the Freemasons, it became a symbolic framework for moral and spiritual development. And within this framework, the pillars, which were Jachin and Boaz, basically uh, took on a different meaning than what they were originally meant. The Masonic lodge's representation of the pillars often stood for a symbolic entrance, basically. Just like with the idea of what the pillars stood for the original first temple, the Temple of Solomon. Okay. So they're not only understood, or they aren't understood merely as like architectural figures, but they were also emblems of balance, duality, and moral grounding. Basically, is what they stood for. Now, now, strength and establishment became metaphors for like inner fortitude and ethical stability. Now, in ritual languages, the pillars mark a passage from ignorance to enlightenment, which also echoes the biblical image of entering sacred space. You know, so that's where the Freemasons came up with that. But it is important to note that Freemasonry, they don't claim like direct historical continuity with like the ancient Israelite temple. You know what I mean? And I think that that's what a lot of people jump to the conclusion about. They believe that the Freemasons actually claim like some direct lineage to the Temple of Israel, but they don't. It's just used. They just use the temporal narrative as like an allegoric structure. So the pillars serve as like teaching tools, not as objects of worship. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
So, what do you say on the whole thing about sacred spaces, Tan? I know you heard that.
I got dropped out halfway, so I heard only the tail end of what you were saying.
Okay,
Well,
so
sacred places. I mean, in the church, there are places that consecrated for worship. So
now,
I'm-
what do you think about my comment about the pillars? The pillars mark a passage from ignorance to enlightenment. Have you heard of that kind of language before?
no,
Okay,
that sounds like something out of the biblical traditions.
right. That's
No,
actually
no, something outside of the biblical traditions.
now, the biblical image of entering sacred spaces is actually what that represents.
But
I mean, that's
this is
exactly
it.
what it represents. Like
This is the Freemasons teaching, is it?
no, that's just the way. That's what those pillars actually stood for, not just.
Well, who tell you that? Who told you that's what it
That's
stood for?
according. That's it originally meant that in the Jewish tradition before Christianity.
Where?
The the
Like,
pill the pillars of the Temple of Solomon, Boaz, and Jachin. That's exactly why they put them up there. They were symbolic for that purpose. Okay.
it sounds like a Freemasons teaching because they believe in something similar.
Well, yeah, they do. That's what I was just going over. They use them symbolically. It's an allegorical structure, which basically it goes according to the same concepts of ancient Israelites temple worship. This is what the ancient Israelites temple worship consisted of. They believe that that's what happens when you walk in to the temple of Solomon. Okay, when you pass those when you pass those pillars, you're moving from ignorance to enlightenment.
Well, this enlightening thing seems like out of left field for the Jewish tradition and Christianity.
I don't know.
This,
I see. I hear a lot of people who claim that they're Christians who think that those words are just taboo, like they're just you know, that doesn't fit into the Christian thing. But enlightenment is actually something that has been used in Christianity quite a bit. I mean, I don't get how people come up with that idea like it's outside of the Christian beliefs when it's not.
It's strange. It's a strange terminology to me, other than to hear it from Buddhist teachings.
Yeah, I was just thinking on the same line.
Well, I don't see where you come up with it not being a part of
You say
Christian
it's in
beliefs.
it's everywhere in the Bible. You say?
Well, I mean, you're saying that enlightenment isn't a part of the Christian belief. Is that what you're saying? That that
Yeah.
that that we shouldn't be enlightened because why?
Enlightenment is it's I mean, okay, you can correct me, I'm wrong, but the common understanding of that enlightenment is that somebody who's seeking for truth and discovering it out of their own accord. They're discovering, they're enlightened. It's all of a sudden they're searching. This is like what the Buddha did. He tried to discover, and suddenly he realized all the truth of the universe, and he become the enlightened one. That's what the Buddha means. Um,
So
in the Judaist Christian worldview, Christ or the I mean, in the Christian worldview, Christ is the light, right, of the world. So you know, you follow him, you follow his light. You don't get enlightened by himself. You probably get reflections of his light, if you're lucky. But you know, you don't get your own light
so,
in the sense that people of the Buddhist tradition get enlightened by themselves.
well, see, the thing is I learned things from the Christian traditions, which actually does support enlightened ideas because you see, the average Christian, they don't really practice what they preach. Like when it comes to fortitude and ethical stability, okay, these are principles. The key word principles, which comes from the Christian beliefs, morality. You know, when you live according to tradition, you live according to principles. You just don't say the word, well, this is tradition. You actually have traditions that you have to live by. Okay. Principles, that's something that's learned. That's not something that Jesus is going to teach you. Okay. It's like when they say, Jesus says, you know, stop sinning. Okay. He doesn't just say stop sinning. He also says stop sinning and stop sinning. You know what I mean? Do it on a regular practice. And if you follow my teachings and do it on a day to day basis, then you'll be able to stay away from sin. A lot of people just believe, well, you accept Jesus into my heart and everything's taken care of. And that's not the case. Okay. There's footwork that goes with it. That's my take on it. So,
Yeah, but okay, how does that relate to enlightenment?
you have to learn, don't you?
Yeah, but you learn. Okay, so
You know what
learn.
self valuation is, right?
No, explain to me what it is.
Self valuation is when you look at yourself and you determine what your character defects are and you try to change those. So if you are doing something negative, you have to practice at changing those habits from something negative into something good, into something positive.
Again, okay, fine, but it sounds very iffy to me.
That's what you're. I mean, you understand that's why you go to confession, right?
Yeah, but it doesn't mean after I go to confession I become enlightened.
he turns around, he tells you this is what you need to do, though, right? To be forgiven for your sins.
No, he doesn't have to. That's the counseling part of confession. All he needed to do was just say, "Your sins, I have, in the name of Christ, I absolve you of your sin." That's it.
Mhm. But
Now,
but
some
that,
people take it further and they advise you on what to do to avoid falling again, but it's not part of the. They don't have to do that. Yeah, or they can just say, seek counseling, seek help or something. And here's a Catholic psychologist that I can recommend you to go to. Yeah, yeah, they don't have to. I mean, it takes. It depends on how many people are in line, right? You have to give counsel to every sin, then it'll take all day.
well, I mean, for me, that kind of sounds like um, that you can just keep on sinning and doing the same thing over and over again, and you don't have to worry about the consequences because you can go to a priest and they can absolve you of all your
Yeah,
sins.
yeah. That's the concept I've always taken. Well,
No,
he at least
that's a
basically.
wrong.
Yeah.
That's a wrong understanding. I mean, I guess some people believe in that. Maybe even a lot of people believe in that. But the church teaches that. I mean, if you go to confession, you have to be repentant, right?
Yeah, repent.
You have
And
to. You have to. At least at the time of confession, you have to honestly believe that you are not going to try to do this again after you get out of confession.
right,
Is if you're confessing a sin with the intention that, okay, after I'm absorbed, I'm going to go in there and commit again, it invalidates the sacrament of confessions, actually. So
right,
you're not actually forgiven.
exactly. But see, you said the key word. You said repentance. Now that's where the footwork comes into play. Okay, because repentance is an action word. Believe it or not,
It
you
is.
just
Yeah.
okay. And I believe that a lot of people miss that. They don't really understand that. So in order for you to repent, you have to learn. You have to become enlightened. You have to understand that in order for me to stop doing this, I have to do this. Change, you see?
Yeah, see, I don't, I don't, the word enlighten, maybe there's different terms that is similar, but not exactly. But I'm feeling that you're, because there in the United States, there's this time period where it's called the Age of Enlightenment, right?
No, that
Uh,
was European. Don't go there. That was
Oh, yeah,
European.
that's a lot later. That's what
No, the Age of
15th
Enlightenment started in
century.
Europe, man.
okay, okay,
You guys are
all right, maybe
weirdos.
in Europe, okay, but
See,
but
you're trying to pull the Mark Edworthy thing and blame everything on the United States.
no, it's. I don't mean I'm okay. Okay, I take back. I was mistaken. I mean, it wasn't intentional. I was trying to blame the United States.
Okay.
But the thing is that this thing, Age of Enlightenment, sounds also very iffy, and it seems like what you were saying is quoting right out of that Bible of the Age of Enlightenment, uh, because it's very foreign to Christianity. Uh,
In the concept of the European Age of Enlightenment is talking about um, the population understanding the Bible, the Gutenberg press, the mass
yeah.
translation of the Bible. Yeah.
I really believe that it's hard for people who are within the Christian religion to understand like how much this is really intertwining into your belief systems, especially whenever it's just in your face. I was talking about the pillars in Washington, D.C. Mark was just talking about how Roman pillars are everywhere. You know what I mean? In Europe and in England and all that. And it's right there in front of your face, but you still don't want to accept it. You know,
The pillars in Washington State. Are you
well,
talking about like?
what these pillars represent, what they stand for.
Are you talking about like the National Treasure movie thing?
Not all of
No,
it.
White
Like,
House. Doesn't White House have pillars?
hmm I mean,
Yeah.
they're everywhere, and they represent fortitude and ethical stability, which
I
is a
mean,
form of enlightenment.
as a good example, in fact, as a good example of ethics and stability,
Okay. What?
just down the
Uh,
road, I've got a solicitors that outside of the doorway, outside of the artery. Yeah, they've got that sort of classic, Roman classic pillar.
hmm They're everywhere. Now, what was you saying,
anyway,
Tam?
so the I was gonna say I looked up something. You know, Freemasonry is condemned by the Catholic Church. It's
Well,
a
yeah.
heresy.
Well, they actually were anti Freemasons back in the day. They're the ones like today. It's just common to bash the Freemasons and say that they're evildoers who are trying to take over the world. Everybody loves to do that. But like back during the 1800s, they made a concerted effort to try to get rid of them. You know what I mean? They would stage.
And the Freemasons do believe that their traditions date goes all the way back to Moab, Adam or Noah and Solomon in Moab, and the exact things that you were just talking about. So
Well, they adopted a lot of them, and that's another thing that I don't agree with a lot of people in today's world. They think that like a lot of this information was lost, and I don't think that it was lost at all. I think it was retained through esoteric circles. You know what I mean? Like the information may have changed, but the message was still there. You know what I mean? Because from what I've been finding, a lot of the old ideas from ancient philosophers, like the last time we were talking about Al-Kindi, okay, a lot of his teachings and a lot of old philosophers that were not Greek philosophers ended up actually surviving, just like how you talk about like a lot of the Old Testament stuff in the Dead Sea Scrolls survived, you know. A lot of it survived, but it was through esoteric means. It's just too coincidental. Like there's the foot. There's this one symbolic thing where you put the foot forward, and that's in Freemasonry. Well, that also appears in the last kingdom for Egypt with Alexandria in Alexandria. You know what I mean?
okay.
So I personally think that information was retained, but it was retained by esoteric teachings, like especially the mystery schools. I don't think a lot of that ever really got or vanished. You know what I mean? They just kind of changed into another form. That makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, let me read out this part that I just found about Freemasons and see if it jives what you've been talking about. Okay.
Okay.
Freemasons profess a peculiar system of moralities veiled in allegory and illustrated by symbols, centered on a vague, great architect of the universe, and principle of universal humanity, tolerance, and naturalism that relativize religious dogma. They claim ancient origin, but interpret biblical symbols like the peerless Boaz as strength and Jachin as establishment erected at Solomon's temple. Through esoteric lenses, often linking them to pre-Christian mysteries, phallic worship, or political religious anti-dogmatism. I think that's quote out of the Anderson's Constitution of Freemasons, 1723 and 1738 editions. More stuff here. Freemasons rejects dogmatic Christianity, viewing belief in specific truth. For example, for example, the doctrines that the Catholic Church teaches, they view them as secondary or prejudicial to universal love and tolerance. Their dogmatic or their teaching is defined as a search for divine truth through symbols borrowed from masonry and architecture. Humanistic and dogmatic, meaning emphasizing the absolute liberty of conscience and human solidarity, excluding none based on belief. And then symbolic esotericism. Symbols like pillars of Boaz and Jachin, Hiram as Horus as the Christ figure, Osiris, sorry.
Yeah.
The point within the circle, the Vesica, Pisces, Christ symbol, carry four distinct meanings: moral, political, philosophical, and spiritual. It's often anti-authoritarianism, or anti-authoritarian, or naturalistics. Okay. All right. So that sounds very similar to what you were just talking about.
Now, when it comes to the Masons, yeah, that's right on the dot about it. But you need to understand also, you're describing the Catholic Church to a T. Like everything that you believe in it actually teaches the same thing. But the only difference is that you guys don't believe that Osiris and Jesus were one and the same. You see what I mean?
Yeah, we don't. Jesus didn't tell us that he was Osiris, so right. we don't.
And
we don't believe.
The more you talk, the more I'm realizing that I need to go right into Jacob's ladder too, because that's something I really do need to tackle, especially considering we did this with Boaz and the Pillar of Solomon's. Because
are you done with Boaz though?
No, not yet.
Okay,
I just got a little bit more to go.
Keep on it then.
So just as the physical building requires a firm foundation and a stable support, according to the Masons, so too does moral character require strength and order. Now the name Jachin and Boaz encompasses those qualities in a concise symbolic form, like you were just talking about. Now, the relationship between Boaz the man and Boaz the pillar is more thematic than literal. There's no explicit biblical statement linking the pillar to the Bethlehem landowner. All right. Yet the shared name is supposed to invite reflection, according to the Masons. Now Boaz and Ruth, they embody covenant loyalty and responsible power, basically. That goes according to old Jewish belief systems. You know what I'm saying? That's what Boaz and Ruth embodies. That covenant loyalty and responsible power. Now he uses his strength to protect and redeem. Okay. Now the pillar named Boaz, it stands at the threshold of a place dedicated to divine presence, basically. And that suggests strength that upholds sacred order. Okay, now you need to understand that that's what took place from the time period of Ruth until the creation of the first temple. Okay, that is actually a Jewish belief system, but when the book of Ruth came out, they didn't believe in that stuff. It changed, and by the time the first temple came along, that's what they believed in. That's what those pillars represented. Okay, that's before Masonry, Freemasonry. Okay, so the pillars, uh, they suggest strength and and sacred order. Basically, is what it means at this point. Now, in both cases, strength it's not portrayed as brute force. Okay, it's steadiness, reliability, and faithfulness, basically, and that's within a covenant framework between God and the Jews. Okay. So across time, the figure and the pillars have both been interpreted through like different theological and symbolic lenses, basically. So in Jewish tradition, the pillars of the temple represents the grandeur and the prominence of Solomon's reign before the exile. Okay. Now, in Christian readings, the temple often becomes a symbol of spiritual truth, fulfilled in the new ways. And in the Masonic traditions, the temple is neither exclusively Jewish nor Christian in its meaning. It functions as a universal symbol of moral aspiration. I hope that helps you out on what you were just talking about right there.
Okay.
Okay. So the pillars, therefore, become a universal, or they become universal emblems of virtues that are necessary for personal development. And when you start talking about virtues, that's where you start delving into even more stuff when it comes to David, especially. Okay, because you have the Book of Psalms, which we go on for hours when it comes to the Book of Psalms and Christian virtues. But that's something else. I actually got into the Book of Psalms before I started doing research on a lot of this stuff, and there's a lot of things in that book that a lot of people they're not aware of, you know. So, what's your thoughts so far, Dan?
Mm, yeah, no, it's not much to say.
Do you know much about the Book of Psalms?
I know a little bit. I mean, we read from the Book of Psalms at every mass.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the every mass. The first book is a book from the Old Testament, and then followed by something from the Psalms,
Mm-hmm.
and then reading from the New Testament.
Okay, so the enduring appeal of the name Boaz may lie in its layered resonance. It bridges narrative and architecture, history and symbolism. In the book of Ruth, Boaz acts decisively yet compassionately, anchoring a fragile family line that will shape Israel's future. Now, in the temple narrative of moral instruction, uh, Boaz stands immovable at the entrance of sacred space, and he also represents stability at the heart of worship. Now, in Freemasonry, Boaz marks the threshold of moral instruction, reminding initiates that strength is foundational to the building of character. So, understanding these connections require careful distinction between historical fact and symbolic adaptation. The biblical pillars were real architecture features described in ancient texts, where the Masonic pillars are ritual symbols inspired by those texts. Now the Boaz of Bethlehem was a historical or legendary figure, however you want to look at it, that was embedded in Israel's early monarchy narrative. Yet across these different settings, the concept of strength remains central. Strength that protects the vulnerable, strength that frames sacred order, strength that supports moral growth. In the end, the name Boaz serves as a reminder that ideas travel across centuries in unexpected ways. The landowner in the ancient agrarian society becomes an ancestor of kings. His name becomes part of temple architecture. And that architecture becomes a metaphor for personal development in a later fraternal tradition. Though separated by time and context, these strands remain connected by shared themes of covenant stability and enduring strength. So that's all I have written there on that. What you guys just thought on that? What I just wrote or read?
That's all right. I'm still back. If you look into why these pillars were named after Boaz and Jachin.
Now, Jachin, I haven't been able to find very much about it. Now, Boaz was because he's direct lineage to the prophetic Messiah. Even though the Jews didn't accept Jesus as their Messiah, they did believe in a Messiah that was going to come through the lineage of David. So I know that's why he was named, or his name was put on there. So that's why I know about him. But Jock and I haven't been able to find very much on, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I found
So
out. I found more out about Hiram Abiff than what I did on this guy.
First book of Kings just says that this is when Solomon was building the temple. He just said, he wrote that Solomon, he set up the pillars at the vestibule of the temple. He set up the pillar on the south and called it Jachin, and he set up the pillar on the north and called it Boaz. And that's straight from the Bible, but it doesn't provide reason for why he named it such.
Well, you also have
You're
to.
right. Huh?
You also have to understand too that the Bible has been altered throughout time. So, I mean, I believe that a lot of that should really be looked at because there has been alterations. Because you got to remember, like at one time, the only way you could read the Bible was in Latin. It was illegal to have English translated Bibles. So I think before you start even getting into what the
That's my
Bible,
point earlier.
before you even start getting into the Bible and what the Bible means, you have to understand that it's been changed even from now until the early Christian church.
Patristic interpretations is like the early church fathers, right? I'm just providing the Catholic view of what you've just brought up.
Well, it's just like with it's
wait, let me read this.
Oh, go ahead.
Early interpreters saw the names as prophetic of the church realities. The right pillar, Jachin, represents doctors establishing the primitive church in Jerusalem, or prophets foretelling of Christ coming in the flesh. That's the right pillar. The left pillar, Boaz, preachers, they represent preachers sent to the Gentiles, or witnesses proclaiming Christ's redemptive arrival and bloodshed for the world.
That's called enlightenment, dude. You just found your own answer out. There is.
Yeah. Well,
That means there's.
we're still not talking about enlightenment.
you just discussed Christian enlightenment right there, dude. Thank you.
No, man. No, what did we
Yes,
say?
you
We don't.
did.
What is enlightenment? Which part of what I just read sound to you like enlightenment?
Missionaries sent out to teach to those wretched Gentiles the ways of Jesus and the coming.
Yeah, and I keep objecting to the
Yeah, I know
usage
you
of
do.
enlightenment because you are usurping Buddhist terminology into a Christian.
Well, see, the word
That's right.
usurp.
Because when you teach somebody and someone learn, they learn from being taught.
Yeah.
Enlightenment is somebody just discovering truth on their own self.
No, no, it's not. Buddhists don't even believe that crap, dude. I mean, if you really want me to be literal about this, Buddhist actually puts more time and effort into their faith than what a Christian does. Like, you know what I mean? They look at Christian beliefs and they're like, oh my God, I cannot believe that you just think it's that easy. You know what I mean? They actually have a sect of Buddhism where they believe that freaking all you have to do is say freaking you believe in something and it's true. You know what I mean? And that's the same concept of what a lot of Christians believe.
But Christians don't believe that.
All you have to do is accept Jesus into your heart and you're saved, dude. You don't have to do nothing else.
About what you believe or what the Catholics believe?
That's what's being taught to most of the Christians in this world. Just all you got to do is take Jesus into your heart and you're saved. You don't have to do nothing else.
Yeah, but that's not correct. That's not what I believe.
I didn't say you believe, but the majority of the people who are Christians do believe that stuff.
No, yeah, I mean that's not what Catholics believe.
Catholics are Christians too.
Well, I mean, yeah, there are some Christians that go and say, "Oh, just you say this Jesus prayer, and then you are saved, and you can never go wrong again." But that's not what normal Christians believe.
Normal Christians do believe. People who actually take their beliefs serious don't believe that. Okay, but the average person who calls themselves a Christian do not actually take their religion serious. Just be serious about that. Okay. Like you really get into your beliefs. I know that you're one of those people I'm saying who's serious about it. Okay. But you're not just an ordinary Christian.
I think I am.
No,
like
you're
to think
not.
that I am.
You really do believe in what you believe in. You know what I mean? You've got a strong belief in the Christian beliefs, but not every the ordinary Christian doesn't do that.
Anyway, back you were saying that even the Buddhists don't believe in enlightenment in the way that I just
yeah they don't
stated.
Yeah, you've heard of the Five Noble Truths, right?
Yes.
Okay, now the Five Noble Truths, it leads into a lot more deeper subjects that you have to deal with. You have to deal with your senses, the things that you smell, the things that you taste, the things that you see and hear, and you have to incorporate that into what causes desire. Okay. And you have to understand that ignorance is what freaking causes you to reincarnate later on into freaking another life with the same ignorance that you had before. You know what I mean? Because you don't give up those instincts for freaking What did I just say? Well,
But I mean, okay, but they okay. So the final truth, this they are like basic guide to a Buddhist to start on the journey to discover the truth. How do they discover the truth by themselves?
they
Like
don't.
they
I mean,
meditate, don't they? They go and they meditate
no,
and hope to become enlightened.
well, you know, they've got religious organizations just like you do in your Catholic church, right? Like they don't just sit around meditating all day. They've actually got spiritual leaders that they talk to, and like you have your
Yeah.
priests. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
that's fair. Yeah, yeah.
It's like they're not just sitting under a tree freaking meditating all day, dude. Where did you come up with such nonsense, Dan?
From Gautama Buddha, man. He's the first one that did it.
Well, he actually is something that is in a lot of controversy too, because like you know how the Christian church has a lot of different denominations. There's different groups of Buddhists too who have their different interpretations of all that.
Yeah,
Which
yeah. But he was the first Buddhist, wasn't he?
right, and see he actually came from a rich, extravagant family. And he gave up his rich, extravagant ways and became Buddha.
Hmm.
And it all
But
started.
he come which religious tradition did he come from? He didn't just go out of the blue and be found his own tradition. He's got some grounding.
Well, see, I go a different direction. I go according to uh, historical truth. I don't do the religious path. Now, for me, I know that Buddha originally was Hindu. He wasn't.
Yes,
He wasn't. He
from the
wasn't.
Brahmanic tradition.
Right. Now you'll hear a lot of people who say differently, but that's what I've learned. I've learned that
Okay.
he was actually Hindu.
Yep.
And
Yep.
and you know, I know a lot of people have their opinions on that too, but I find that like Hindus actually have more love and compassion in their hierarchical structured society than what even the Buddhists or the Christians do. Like they seem to show more love and compassion towards their fellow man if you really get into their writings. But that's more on a personal, human to human relationship. Like they really say that you should respect one another a lot more than what people really do, and you don't see that as much in the Buddhist or the Christian religion. That's my take,
Yeah. Okay. So they're better practitioners of their faith than Christians and Buddhists.
mostly. Yeah, and they have really really cool stories. Like, I mean, you guys your stories don't really match up to the Hindu stories. Those are really cool. Like I love reading about the Naga. You know what I mean? The Nagas are just the most amazing stuff to get into. Um, and then you start reading about uh, what was his name? He was Vishnu. He actually Vishnu actually slept on a bed of Nagas. His bed was a Naga king.
What is a Naga?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
What is a Naga?
Yeah,
Naga,
I was going to ask you to define.
well, Naga is a, a reptile, a reptilian with a human head and uh, stuff like that.
Aliens.
No, well, it all depends on which genre
Well,
you're talking to. A lot of people
depends
do.
what you mean by alien.
A lot of
quite
people,
The kind that is the
description.
robot.
yeah. Well, this is going to be on the wonderful world of weirdness, so we can talk about aliens and we can talk about ghosts and stuff too. But yeah, that it depends on what genre you're involved in. Like there are people who believe that the Nagas were aliens. So yeah,
As an extraterrestrial.
yeah, but as an extraterrestrial, which if you really want to get into the more specifics of a lot of that, uh, you really need to learn about the history of the relationship between the bird and the reptile and the snake, or the reptile period. Like that's intertwined in a lot of history. You know what I mean? And different cultures all around the world practiced it. So
So are we going into sort of dragon mythology now?
kind of. You have to incorporate the bird into it too.
Or at least in the sense of the Chinese concept.
Well, look at our emblem of the bald eagle with the snake in its claws. Okay, here in the United States,
Right.
and I believe Russia even had it at one time, didn't they? With the bald eagle with the snake in its paws. It was a symbol, wasn't it?
Not sure.
The Sumerians had a story where an eagle was perched on the top of the tree and a snake with its babies were perched at the bottom. And when the snake left its freaking den, the bird went down and killed its babies. And it's a very, very interesting story. And the Sumerians were the first civilization, first known civilization in history, in the history of mankind. You know, now
That we know about.
right now you had the Ubaid, but they were a culture; they weren't a civilization.
Okay, back to Boaz. I'm thinking, reading a little bit more, and I'm just thinking the naming is just coincidental with the character Boaz in earlier time, because, right? You also mentioned it, Roger. Boaz literally means strength. Yeah, in
Right.
him is strength. Basically, what it is. In him
Exactly.
is strength. What's Boaz? And Jackin, it means God will establish. He will establish.
Mm-hmm.
So when Solomon built this temple, he raised two pillars and named the left and the right such. He could just be dedicating it to God with these pillars. And it may have nothing to do with the character Boaz in earlier times.
Well, I'm wondering if that character was actually named Boaz too, because it's been historically known where, well, you can see it if you do the research, where you'll see that these people are being named after the things that they did in their life. You know what I'm saying? I was just talking to Mark,
You mentioned that. Yeah.
Mark about that, like the name Arpad.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Just like Saul was renamed Paul,
Mm-hmm.
and Abram was renamed Abraham. So they are renamed for their mission, for the mission that they are called to.
Right.
But that's a far-reaching conclusion to say this Boaz, named after the pillar, has anything to do with Boaz the character.
Oh, I guarantee it does. The line of David was very, very important. Very important.
Well, then, who is Jackin?
You tell me.
There's no such.
No, I told you. I've checked it out too. I don't know who he is. I
No
have
such
no
there's
clue.
no such person.
What if there was? Okay,
I
now
mean, it's
it's
not recorded.
What do you mean? What if the war?
If it was any of any importance, it would have been recorded.
it could have been lost. You realize how many times before Christianity came along that the Jews had freaking revised the Old Testament? They'd done it
Yeah,
twice.
but I believe that the Bible is preserved, even though it gone through all these revisions. The core truth is reserved,
Right,
protected by the Holy Spirit.
but some of the stories are left out to protect the innocents. You know, it's just like we were talking about.
No, I mean, if they're left out, then it means they're not important.
Oh, is that what that means?
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, if God writes a story, you think He would hide stuff from you?
not God.
Yeah.
You could argue
God,
that God
God wrote the
the
Bible through human
wrote
hands.
the Bible, but man interpreted the Bible.
Right, that's kind
So
of what I was getting at. He didn't
yeah.
want to hear that. He's getting stubborn. He didn't want to hear that.
No, yeah. I mean,
Well, I mean,
wow. What the Bible
okay,
is
here,
written, how it's written,
here, here,
interpretation is up to something else
here-
outside. It's not, the
here's a
Bible
good
doesn't interpret itself.
hold on. Here's a good example of what I'm talking about. Like you've done it, and I've heard a lot of Christians do this. They take credit for how freaking close the Bible was to the Dead Sea Scrolls, which that's cool. But then they leave out simple details. They leave out the detail that the Book of Enoch was in the Dead Sea Scrolls. There was also a freaking copper freaking template which stated that there was treasures that was hidden all over the Middle East in the Dead Sea Scrolls. They have freaking all of these other writings that aren't a part of the Old Testament that are in the Dead Sea Scrolls, but that's never mentioned. You know what I mean? At all. It's like,
Why do you think? Why would they? You think the Bible needs to mention about treasures hidden all over the world?
no, I'm talking about Christians today who talk about the Dead Sea Scrolls. They don't want to mention the fact that the Book of Enoch was there, that the emerald or the bronze tablet was there, that all of these other things. But they want to make it known to you is that it comes really, really close to the Bible we have today. So we were right there on task. We did everything we were supposed to do. They don't bother to tell you what was taken out. Okay. As a matter of fact, all of these books, like the Book of Talbot, the Book of Enoch, or the Book of Enoch, all of these, the people back then actually read those books and believed in those books just as much as the Bible that you're reading today. Okay. But for some reason now, these churches believe that that's all not a part of Christianity.
It's not now. The canon of the Bible was established very early in the life of the church. Not now, not just now. I'm pretty sure they were aware that the existence of these other books out there. We just you think they don't know?
Well, they knew that's the reason why they had to bury all those books is
No,
because
they knew and they rejected it. That's why the
if
canon is what it is now.
if they didn't coincide with the canon, they were put to death and the books were destroyed. So they had to be hidden, and the people who believed in those books had to keep quiet, or they would have died because of it. You see, so that
That's your theory, right?
no,
I mean,
that's fact. That's what took place.
who died because of they kept some books secret from the church?
They kept every person who was put to death because of freaking the early church going on their rampage and murdering people. Hypatia was one of them. She believed in astrology, and Eusebius ended up causing riots within Alexandria because of his rhetoric. So mobs of Christians drug her out into the street and dismembered her and then burned her body because of her beliefs. And then they went into the Egyptian temples. They desecrated all of the ancient Egyptian artifacts and put Christian artifacts in their place.
Well, I believe uh, I believe the Bible is the way it is because it's being protected by the Holy Spirit Himself. So there's no such thing as somebody taking something out, rewriting it as something different. Maybe when the scribe were copying from one manuscript to another, they may have made some mistake, but the core truth that is being recorded is still there. And it's consistent if you look at the whole Bible together. If you correlate one book with another, somehow they are cohesive when taken as a whole story.
Yeah. Now, if you take a look at like the Book of Enoch and you compare that with the actual Bible, you can see the correlation, like you're saying right there. I just think that it got into a really hectic area. You know what I'm saying? Like I was talking to you earlier about the book of Adam. Okay. Now I can see early Christians reading that and saying, "Look, that's just not going to happen. We aren't going to be going there," because they literally freaking talk about the rape of Eve by the archons. Okay, and this is some pretty freaking crazy stuff. You know what I'm saying? And I don't see any early Christians wanting that anywhere around their Bible. So,
I mean, if there's that perverse, if the writing is that twisted,
yeah.
why would why would there be any hint of Christian truth in it?
Well, the Gnostics is a blend of Egyptian and Christian uh, belief systems from Alexandria. And this is in the fifth dynasty, I believe, is when that took place. It might have been after the dynasties altogether, for all I know. But I know that that's when Gnosticism took place, and that's what it was. It was a melding of Egyptian belief systems during that time period with the Christian beliefs, and they get really like. Have you ever read any ancient Egyptian stuff? They're real they're really methodical about everything. You know what I mean? They have to have an explanation for this and then this. And then that's the reason why a lot of their deities have like a dog head, and then they turn around and they'll mix it up and they'll have two deities blended together like Amun Ra. You know, Amun was a deity and then Ra was a separate deity, but they combined them together. You know what I mean? So they had a
Do you
tenant.
think that
Oh, go ahead.
you think that those deities that like human body with Godhead, they're actually such a thing, or is that just a human wearing a headdress that has the look shape of a dog because they worship the animal?
Well, you know, if you look at it this way, like I've watched Ancient Aliens, and they have this idea that these people are wearing like space uniforms or freaking they have like a mask on. Okay, and I often think about that old TV show Grimm when I think about this too. You know, like when you're looking at those hieroglyphs, what if what they're really showing you is that this deity transforms into this animal? What if the dog face was actually this god transforming into a dog.
No, I think it's just a human wearing a headdress, a face cover that looks like a face of a dog. It's
So,
basically a mask.
so you're more of a Stargate kind of guy.
Yeah, Star Trek kind
So,
of.
arguably, we'll just got a point. I'm just thinking of the isn't it Zeus and transforming into a bull?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true. Never even thought about that.
Yeah, yeah. But
And it,
that's Greek though.
exactly, yeah, there could
Yeah.
be a connection there. Look at what's his name? Oh God, Zeus's brother. Um, Neptune, not Neptune. What's his name? He's the god of the sea.
Uh,
Poseidon. Okay,
yeah.
Poseidon was god of the horses. He what's his name? He's actually the father of Pegasus. So that means he's had sex
Oh,
with a
really?
horse. Yeah, Pegasus is
Yeah.
his child. So that means he intermingled with horses.
Wait. Now I'm seeing where maybe the people who wrote the Book of Enoch were Greeks.
Well, you don't really think Romans are the ones who wrote freaking the Bible, right? I mean, it's just putting it out there, I mean, I think the biggest mistake when it comes to the Christian Bible is when they translated the freaking Greek into Latin, like, because they do not mix.
You are sort of suggesting that the Bible was written at a single time.
Aramaic, man. The
It
original.
was originally written
Yeah,
in
definitely made the argument before that.
in Hebrews. It was written originally in Hebrews.
So
Supposedly, there's no proof of
I
that
think I've
anymore.
made the argument before that the Bible could have been written over something like the point of 1500 years.
Yeah, written by Moses. The first 5 books were written by Moses.
Yeah.
No, the first 5 books was written by. It was written by Adam.
No. Adam didn't know how
It's
to
written
write.
by scholars, not interpreted. And also, there could have been political motivations as well. So, or societal motivations.
Okay, so
So,
we have made it up to an hour and 45 minutes. I think we had a good show. I think we actually did. And later on, man, I'd like to do something more when it comes to talking about Ruth and Esther because I
Jacob's
really
ladder.
Jacob's Ladder. Yes, exactly. And come back and do a Jacob's Ladder because I think that is something that I really need to think of. I wanted to be hip and cool. You know what I mean? Like Mr. Robot, talk about the Emerald tablets.
Right, right, and reptilian aliens.
Well, I will talk about reptilian aliens. It's just I don't believe in them, 100 wholeheartedly. So, but I think the Jacob's Ladder thing is the thing that I need to go towards because, and then later on I can come back.
Just as a sneak peek. Jacob's ladder is the foreshadowing of Christ, right?
Right. And it goes, I mean, it goes in so many different directions. I don't even think you even are aware of some of the stuff that's involved with it. Like, there's so many cult followings involved with Jacob's Ladder. It'd blow your mind. And it relates to
Okay,
Egypt.
yeah, note them all out and let's
Yeah.
talk about.
I'll pull them up. We'll get it going. And I figured we should give it a stop here and come back and later on discuss some more of it. I'm glad that you guys showed up, and I'm glad we had this episode. Now, before we end this, do you guys want to give your socials so that people can know who you are and how to find you if they want to talk to you? Starting.
Okay. I'm Tan Hai Tran. My handle is th2tran on minds.com.
Okay, how about you, Mark?
Okay. Again, minds.com under the username Midworthy.
All right, and I am Roger underscore Hanson at minds.com. You can find me there. You can also find me on X, Roger Hanson at ROGLOL1973. The Wonderful World of Weirdness is on Discord. If you go on there and you type in The Wonderful World of Weirdness, you will find it on there. I'm also on Teams as well as Element Matrix. You can find me at Rogers Hangout on both Teams or Element Matrix and Teams. So.
Like